You're listening to The Topcast, the original podcast for growth-minded instrumental music and voice teachers since 2015, with your host, Tim Topham. Our mission at Top Music is to empower instrumental music and voice teachers to find and nurture their innate creativity so that they can teach lessons that are innovative, integrated, and inspiring, and that will have a positive, lifelong impact on their students. Join us each week as we interview teachers and creators from around the world and unpack fun and exciting ideas to maximize your teaching and studio business success.
Tara Wright here, and welcome back to the Topcast from Top Music Co. At Top Music, we love guiding and supporting music teachers just like you to engage, motivate, and inspire your students and run the most sustainable studio business possible using our integrated music teaching system. It's great to be with you for another week of the Topcast. Our episode today is about executing your quarterly plans and assessing your quarterly plans. So let's get into it. So in today's video, we are going to talk about your quarterly plan. Now, this is one of my favorite ways to organize and plan my entire year because it gives me an overview of what I'm going to be doing the next several months, but it's not so overwhelming that I have to plan for my entire year because let's face it, life happens, things change, and it's a lot easier planning 3 months than it is 12. And if things have to change in your life, it's a lot easier when you have to redo only a few months versus 12 months. So let's get to it. One of the first things I do is I write in the dates on my calendar. Then I put in the non-negotiable dates. So we've talked about this before. This is things happening with your family, things that have to happen. It's happening right then and there. So you've probably already done this on your yearly calendar if you sat down and did your yearly calendar. But this gives me more of a focus and lets me see where things are lining up for the next several months. So I'm going to pop in a few of mine right now. So I know in the month of January, we are going to do a big launch for Top Music. So that is a non-negotiable. That is happening. I have to be there because I'm running the thing. So this is a big launch week for me. Now, I do this a couple different ways. Sometimes I use dry erase markers because it will come off very easily, and I love that, especially when I'm planning. Other times I will use sticky notes, and if you actually get into my office, you'll realize I have so many sticky notes, so many different sizes, so many different colors, and what I do is I coordinate all my colors. So if I'm doing big launches, I may use yellow. If I have a family event or something going on with my family, I'll use this color. So what I like to do is I like to coordinate everything. So when I look up at my calendar, I can see what's going on and where I need to be and when. And later when you see my weekly schedule on my Google Calendar, you'll understand why. Right now for you guys, I'm just going to show you with my dry erase markers. The other tip for you is you can also get wet erase markers. Don't know if you've heard of them. They are fabulous. Things with dry erase markers is they erase pretty easily. If you want something a little more permanent, get a wet erase marker and you'll actually have to use water to get it off, but it stays on there. So if you accidentally smudge it like I sometimes do, it won't happen with the wet erase markers. And then a tip for your sticky notes, I don't know if you know this, but if you pull up a sticky note like this, it will curl and it'll never stay flat. No. This is how you want to do it. You want to pull off this way so it sticks flat. So those are some helpful tips. So the first thing I do is I put in my non-negotiables, things that are really happening, things that have to happen that day or on those days. So I know I'm doing a big launch Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of that first week of the year. But I also know this launch is going to go all the way through the 13th, the 14th of January. So I know I'm going to be in launch mode, which means I am putting almost all of the energy I have into doing this project. So there's nothing else getting done those 2 weeks. Now, I do know because I'm prepping for this big launch and because I'm doing this whole course, I'm going to be working a lot coming up in the next several weeks and a month. So I'm actually going to take off the last 2 weeks. And this is how I start mapping things out. I know I'm going to be in a big work launch the first 2. I know I can take a little bit of a rest in these 2 weeks. Now, I'll still be doing some of my other jobs, of course, because who really takes off work? Not this girl. But what I'll do is I will schedule other activities that I really want to do in these 2 weeks. Do I know what those are? Not quite yet. But when time gets closer, I know I'll figure that out. I'll plan events on these days. The other thing that I know is in the month of February, I am actually going to go out of town. So typically what I'll do is I will put Post-it notes saying what I'm doing. So for this week, I'm actually going down to Nashville to see a show. So I'll type that out so I can see what's happening and when it's happening. The other thing that I know is on the 15th and the 30th, I have a big project that I have with Swing City. So I will mark those out on my calendar. For this one, I've got it here. We're also going to do it here. And if you're wondering, I am looking at my yearly calendar that I have sitting over here next to me. And in February, I know that we're going to do one here. And since February only has 28 days, we're going to go with that. So I have those dates marked off. What that means to me is there's a big project happening and I'm going to be doing it on those days. The other thing I know I'm going to do is we are going to do a podcast launch here. So I know that's going to be a big project, but I also know I'm going to have to prep for that leading up into that month. So this is how I start setting up my months on my quarterly plan. Then what I do is I look and see what do I want to accomplish in these months and do I actually have the time for those things? So one of my goals is to get my pilot's license this year. So up here, I want to start that in January. So here I'm going to do pilot's license, which means I need to start studying for my grounds course. So what I'm going to do is I know those first 2 weeks, it ain't happening. Like, let's be honest, I am not doing anything those 2 weeks other than launching and teaching. So this week, and I'll do it with a sticky note, I know that week I'm going to do a pilot's license course and I'm going to start that. So I'm going to pencil that in. And then once I get to my weekly and daily calendars, that's when I'll get more in depth of what's happening. But I know those things are going to have to happen and we're going to start here. And sometimes I will map that out throughout my month. I know because I will be more of a down week, couple weeks these weeks, I'll be able to do that a little bit more. So I will pencil that in. Another way I use my quarterly calendar is when I'm planning content. So I do a lot of content between socials, blogs, posting podcasts, doing YouTube videos. I do all the things. So I actually do one of these for each of the businesses that I help manage. And I will actually plan out the whole content calendar on the quarterly calendar. And I like to use sticky notes. So this peachy color is more of a podcast. So for every business that I'm doing, I'll do podcast and I'll plan those out. I'll take a blue color and I'll do that for the blog. And I will post those on whatever day we're doing blog post. And then what I'll do is I'll come in and I'll write down what our goal or what our topic is going to be about for that blog post. Because what happens is sometimes we need to pivot. And the reason I like doing that is because I can take my sticky note off and go, I still need to use this idea. This was a wonderful idea. Where else could I fit it? And I may have to move it back, but at least it still goes on my calendar. And it's easily movable. Now, you may say, in the month of February, I want to get really good at posting social media. Perfect. So we'll type in socials. I know a lot of us struggle with posting socials consistently. So one of the big things that you can do is say, okay, I want to do socials. I want to post 3 or 4 times per week. So socials may be overwhelming to you. But if we break it down and say, okay, I want to post 3 or 4 times a week, that's not that bad. So what I would do is I would get out my sticky notes because, I love my sticky notes. And I go, okay, if I post every Monday, I'm going to post a motivational Monday post. And what I would do is I would come in and I would put sticky notes on every Monday. Now in February, we don't have that Monday. Then I would say, okay, on Wednesday, I want to do a student spotlight. Easy. And then maybe on Friday, you'd have a different color and you would put in the things that you want to do on Friday. Now what you can do is you can go in and say student 1, put their name down, and maybe put a goal or an achievement that they've done recently. And what you can do is you can go in and you can batch all of these out. Maybe take your Tuesday students and go, hey, I'm going to photograph you today. You did this really great thing and you're going to be featured this month. They get really excited. And if you tag the parent, then they'll share it to their friends as well. Now, make sure you have authorization from the parents and they have signed a waiver form that you're allowed to post pictures of their kids on your socials. So be wary of that. On Mondays, maybe the first Monday of the month, you'll sit down and you'll batch out all 4 posts. Batching 4 posts is a lot easier than going, oh man, I really should post something today, and you don't know where to start. Having an idea of what you want to do and batching them out makes it a lot easier. So this is how I use my quarterly planning. Now I'm going to talk to you about what I go over for my quarterly assessment. Now, if you did my yearly assessment, we kind of dive deep into all of the things. But with the quarterly assessment, we don't go so in depth. But the first thing I want to know is, how do you feel in general about the last quarter? How did it go for you? And how are you doing? Because that's really important. Every season of life is different and a lot can happen in 3 months. Are you doing okay? Are you really energized, or are you just not feeling it after these past few months? And what are your top 3 to 5 biggest accomplishments or learnings and findings from this past quarter? And when you're reviewing this past quarter, did you accomplish your goals? And how far did you get? What really worked for you and what didn't work for you? And here's your financial check-in. Did you meet your financial goals, or what about your expenses? Did you spend a little too much and not make enough, or did you do the vice versa? Now, my favorite thing, you know what it is. What's one thing that you want to keep up from this last quarter? What's one thing you want to tweak? What's one thing you want to add? And what's one thing you want to subtract? Now, what are your top 3 lessons that you learned this quarter? And what didn't go as planned this quarter and why? And what went really well for you? What changes can you make so this next quarter is better for you? Now, I also want you to think that this first quarter that you've done this assessment, you want to keep this handy, because next year at this time, when you go into this first quarter or second quarter, you can look and see what happened, if you're going to repeat some of those things, and what you can do better for next year at this time, because we all do have similar seasons throughout the year. Now, let me know below what's going on in your world, what worked this quarter, what didn't work this quarter. And you can also use this on a weekly basis. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to switch over, and I'm going to show you my weekly plans, so you can see how color coordinated it is and how I actually run everything in my life. And I'll see you in the next module.
Top Music Pro enables you to be a pro in your own studio, because you don't have to reinvent the wheel and you don't have to make up all the answers yourself. You have support.
I think of Top Music as the pot of gold at the end of a rainbow. This site is the whole pot of gold, and there's gold pieces in there that I didn't even know existed.
I am actually teaching a full studio. They're coming online from miles away. So I am certainly thriving.
So what Tim has done is build a global community of piano teachers who are interested, who are engaged. And when you become part of this community, you feel empowered.
My life is different now because I'm not just in an isolated little studio. I have learnt that there are other people out there going through very similar learning curves and sharing these ideas.
I've really gained a lot of skill sets where my teaching is far more creative, far more innovative. I have resources so that I can add to it things that I didn't know.
My life and my business are different now because I have the 3 things that I really wanted: less stress, more money, and more time.
It's going to be fun. Like, I got excited about being a piano teacher. It's revolutionized everything that I do.
I think I've become a more thoughtful teacher, a more organized teacher. The quality of my teaching has deepened.
I feel like I can do this. I feel a sense of hope. I love the creativity it fosters and the openness to thinking outside the box, and it's energizing.
Joining Top Music really solidified that. Like, no, this is your career and you can make a career out of this. That has really helped me be proud of what I do.
It's made such a tremendous impact on the way I think about teaching. It keeps your mind open when you have so many ideas.
My best win from being on Top Music Pro is just having a lot more peace of mind as a teacher and as a business owner. It just gives me that less amount of hours that I have to do with research and everything.
It's a really good place to spend a few pounds, a few bucks a month. What you get from it far outweighs what you have to pay into it.
My biggest win with Top Music Pro was increased student retention and increased income. I have a lot more confidence in how I'm teaching, and I have the resources that I need when I do have questions.
I probably went from about 35 students to maybe like 65. I ended up doing 3 classes and I had a waiting list.
If I hadn't signed up with Top Music Pro, I probably wouldn't have realized that teaching piano is a real job and you can build your whole career around it.
That's the end of the show for this week. Next week on the podcast, Module 9, executing your weekly and daily plans using Google Calendar. I'm Tara Wright, and you've been listening to the Topcast. Speak with you next time.
How do you keep up to date with all the latest trends and research into music education? How do you connect with other teachers around the world and make sure your teaching stays fresh and relevant for students of all ages and stages, both now and into the future? I created our Top Music Pro membership to be the one-stop shop for music teaching resources, training, support and community, and I'd love for you to come and join us inside. With over 40 comprehensive training courses, hundreds of teaching demonstrations and lesson plans, free monthly sheet music, discounts and all the business and pedagogy support you could ever need, Top Music Pro is the community you've been looking for. If you're ready to level up your learning from the podcast and join thousands of other teachers in our global network, head over to topmusicpro.com today. If you enjoy this show and want to hear more of our work, be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening today. For links and resources mentioned in this episode, visit us at topmusic.co/podcast or check out the show notes. I'm Tim Topham. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy your week ahead, and I'll catch you next time.